Now this particular painting is all about your highlights, brush strokes, and shadows. And before you get started, you might want to do a little practice. Okay, if you haven't gotten into the painting, you can go ahead, take your time, and just create a regular shape. So I'm going to do something sort of similar. Okay, and if you don't have it too big, that way you can actually practice on multiples. And then we're going to take our water. We're going to fill this in with a nice shiny amount of water. You can see pencil line is right here. The brush stops right there. So there's a little gap. And the reason why we have that little gap, you can't see it, but the reason why we have a gap in there, let's see if you can sort of see it there. The reason for that is that if you take your water, most people, if you take your water and you go all the way up to the edge, you can easily go right over it. Now, as I'm doing this, like it's a smaller shape, I'm thinking I have too much water in here. And if I try to add that watercolor blend in a great big sweeping stroke, then I'm going to have too much water, it's going to diffuse. So if you have a brush that has a point on it and you remove that extra water, you can carefully go up, but sometimes people go like this, and then do you see what I'm saying? The brush is this way, you can drag it across your pencil line. You have to be a little more careful. So I'm going to let this sort of dull down for a second. Let's give that a second. Then get some water, bring water into my palette, my watercolor blend. And if I have, let's see, too much water, then it's going to just dissipate. I'm taking that, moving it over to the side because I think I have too much water in that area. Then I can take the brush that has the color, bring it right up to the edge. That way I have a clean line. And what I just noticed, if I hold it like this and my wrist is up like that, I can easily have too much of a wiggly stroke. I'm sure a lot of you have had that by mistake, and you kind of wonder why can't you get a clean line. You may need to support your elbow or your wrist and you'll get a cleaner line. Or press a little harder on the brush and then you'll get a cleaner line. Now I'm trying to get a nice clean highlight in here. Like that. We have a little dot in there. I'm not too concerned about it. And let's look at what we're sort of trying to do. That right in there. Got the color in there. I didn't pay attention to the shape. That's okay. It's starting to dry faster than I can work. So I'm going to move it around. So either it's too wet or it gets dry too fast. Those are some of the things that we have that problem with. I have a little dry spot right there. How am I going to handle that? I'm going to take my brush, rinse it off, wipe off the excess water. I'm not really wringing it out, just going to touch it. And that way whatever surrounding water can fill that in. Then to get that stroke, now remember, I'm sure we did this in one of our other courses. I know we have. Like if we stop like that, we get a little blob at the end. So you're going to sweep your stroke. Sweep your stroke. And I did this right in the center. So water, remove the excess, because I don't want to bring more water back into this. And since I did not place that really in the right area, it doesn't really matter, I'm going to lift my highlight back out. Or I want to reshape this. I'm going to soften that. And if I don't like how that looks, I'm going to go ahead and soften that too. Maybe reshape it. But what I just noticed, I was going to go like this, still had color on my brush, and I was going to go back in, which would have been bad. It would have looked overworked. So I went ahead and did that. Then I have to remove the excess color, then come in and do that. Okay, so this is not exactly like this shape right here, but it's the same idea. Does anybody have a question that you would like to ask, or this is just a good worksheet for you? You're all happy, you all are great, and everything's groovy? Anybody have a question? Unmute yourself if you do, because I'm working away here.
I think that there's not a question, it's just that it looks so easy when you do it. And when we lose control of the water, that's where we get in trouble. It's where I get in trouble anyway. So it's a matter of practice, and I should have practiced my little swoop before I actually attacked the painting. And I would have had more success on the paper for the painting if I had practiced like I thought I was going to do, but I got in a hurry. That's part of my problem.
Well, just like everybody else, who reads instructions? I don't read instructions. I'm a visual person. I have to see and I just go for it.
But if you know, as I do, that that's a weak spot for me, one would think that one would take the time to practice.
No, that's logical. We don't do that. We're artists. We're creative. We're not going to follow any rules. But
I've seen it a million times. Here I go.
But you know what I am going to do is, like, when we have the general group, and anybody in this group can, like, you all have the times for the other meetings. So the other one that was this morning, because that hopefully I was thinking Sylvia would come to that, but no, she wants to be up in the middle of the night, so that's okay. So now let's look at this. See, it's warm. It's up here right now today, and it's dulling down really fast. So I think that this is a good exercise, and I'm going to put this in that the general group meeting again. Like, let's go ahead, and I'm going to get a little purple in here. Now, I actually liked working with the Windsor Blue, red shade and green shade. This is the Windsor Violet Dioxazine that I just put in there, but I think the blue shade and red shade work much nicer, and I just don't have it in the palette here. I think the Windsor Blue, it's cleaner. It's a cleaner blend than using the Windsor Violet Dioxazine. And I would say for about 20 years, I have not used it, never used it, and am just starting to now. Okay. I'm turning my paper so I can access an area a little bit easier. If I go like this, I'm going to have a little line around the edge. It's not going to spread. So I'm going to flatten my brush, maybe like that. But if I press too hard, what can happen is that I'm not releasing the water and color, and then it can be dry. You have to practice with this. Okay? And if I leave it like that, that's not going to look very pretty. So I'm going to go ahead, lift it up, move it around. I'm thinking I'd like my highlight over here. And like I said, if we go and stop, we're going to get a little dot on the end. So we want to sweep. Let's try to wipe that up very quickly. And I just had one last thought on this. So once that dries, if I want to accentuate it, I'm looking for, let's see, we don't really have it on here, but I have a little line right here. Can you see that little tiny line right there? Yes, you can see that. So I came in wet on dry in a very light value, ran it right along the bottom of a line like that, and then it accentuates it. Let's see if I can find anything else. I think that's enough. I don't have an example on hand that I think that would be helpful. But does that help you? Does that give you a better idea of how to handle that? Sylvia, how about you? Oops, I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody. Okay, everybody almost is unmuted. There we go.
Yeah, I'm unmuted.
Okay.
Yes, it does, because I tend to have too much water in there. And it's not drying here. It's got cold again. So I was thinking the other day, if I got a smaller brush like the black-handled one, be able to handle it better. Then I thought, no, that's cheating, because you've got to learn to handle the big brush, get the right amount of water in it.
You know, if it works better for you, who said that was cheating? I didn't say that. You can go ahead and do that. Well, like if we look at this, you can see I've got a little puddle in here.
Yeah.
Okay, now so let's see, like you can see, that is going to leave a blossom right in there. You can see how dry that other part is, and that has that water. So I need to take that water and make it
even.
Yeah. So now how would you be cheating with a little brush doing what?
Well, the 30 brush is so big.
Yeah.
On some of those spaces, when you try to soften the edges, I can't get the brush into the space because I'm just not skilled at, moving it around.
Listen,
So I get smaller brush would be easier.
Here, I am going to give you permission to use the brush size. This is what you need to do, is you have to evaluate the size that you're working on, and then you use the appropriate size brush for that area. Now, and especially once you get the hang of it, maybe then you'll go up. But I'm trying to show you what I would be doing. So let's go ahead and... Ah, that looks interesting. That's a good thing you can't see that pencil line. So, all right. So you're not using the 30, is that right?
No, I do use it, but I have too much water in it. Probably.
Right. And so like earlier today, we had a whole issue that some people, or a couple people, were using this one to paint with. If you use this to paint with, you're reapplying too much water back into this all the time. So that's why we use this to lay down the water and to soften the edges. And then like if I go, now the size is expanding. If I use a number 14 blend, which I still can do, I have to work a little harder to get the color in. Because what can happen is it ends up let me go ahead and I'm going to mute everybody again. And you need to, as you expand the size of your brush. So let's see, I'm going to go to Sylvia here, and I'm going to unmute you because you were talking to me.
Okay.
Okay, and then here we go. I'm going to do this again if it comes back here. Okay, see now I have to work a little harder and I had to flatten my brush to cover a larger area, because otherwise it's going to look like a little ring around that. That's not going to look very good. It's not much bigger, but it's bigger. So I'm going to take that 20, get a little more water and color in there. Maybe not as much over here. Okay, and then is this the problem that you're having sweeping this one in? It doesn't. Okay.
Which problem do you want first? Too much water, not enough pigment, too much water in the brush. It's just practice. I just need to...
It's just practice. So let's look at the shine on the surface.
Yeah.
Okay. Just like that. So what I'm looking for is if I have a lot of water over here accumulating, that could be a problem. And I could lift it out, or I can work with it. And if I work with it, I just have to deal with it differently. I'm trying to recreate your problem, and then I'll let you go in just a second. Okay. So do you see I actually turned my paper so I could get a better angle on that? All right. So we've got just a couple strokes. And now for you to soften the edge, you're saying that this one is the problem when you try to soften the 30?
Yeah, because I still have too much water in it probably.
Okay, so then what you're going to do is you're going to rinse it off. Let's get all the way over here. You're going to rinse it off. See what I'm doing? Side of the brush, or side of the container there. I'm removing that extra water on my terry cloth towel. That's why I have this. Some people will use a sponge. I don't think the sponge removes enough water. Some people, especially on the East Coast, seem to use a roll of toilet paper wrapped with a paper towel. I don't want to look at that on my table. So I think that this works much better. Okay? So I think just practice this for a while. I think that'd be good for you.
Birgit, the thing that I'm finally learning after a year with the big brush is that once you get all the extra water off of it, when you go to do the softening, you have to put some more pressure on it so that whatever's in there doesn't get released. And I think that's one of the secrets of the big brush, is knowing when to press on it and when to not.
Well, you know, this is called the magic wand. So we have, let's see, let's go ahead and, okay, so we get a stroke of color in there, right? And you don't always have to press so hard. Like here, I'm going to go like this. I'm going to remove some of that. I may not dab it out. It depends how far I want to pull that color out. But when you have that much water in there, you need to be careful that it doesn't flush back into the color. I think actually if we just had exercises, a few exercises like this, I know we do this in other classes, but I didn't really do that here. Okay, so we have a soft edge and just trying to get a little control over it. Yeah, so just practicing.